In a word, it's chaos.
You'll have to see it to believe it. Whoever said that must have been talking about Talladega. It's a place where chaos mixes with speed, where a town turns into a city, and a playoffs weekend becomes a lifetime of memories. It's a tradition like no other, at a track like no other. And after it's all over, you still won't believe it ever happened. Get your tickets now at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Tuesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be with you from our Tuscaloosa studios as we go through the show today. We'll first see what's coming up thanks to our friends at RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They've given us a smart board to go through everything coming up on the show today. We will start by talking with the left guard for the Alabama Crimson Tide, Tyler Booker, who was all SEC freshman team selection last year. He's back for his sophomore season and gives us some really good insights on what Coach Saban said to the team following the loss to Texas. Then we'll take a look back to Saturday night and take a look at some of our booth cam highlights, as we always have the Royal Furniture booth cam streaming live during Crimson Tide football games, and you'll see some of the great moments Alabama had from Saturday with Eli Gold on the call. Then we'll hear from the head coach of the Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, with Coach's Checklist as we look a little bit back at the Texas game, but also start to look forward to what's coming up on Saturday in Tampa against USF. And then we'll be speaking with Oscar Cleriga, who has covered Alabama football for over a decade for Claro Sports, broadcasting Crimson Tide football games to over 17 countries in Latin America, as you'll get to hear from Oscar about his story and also a scouting report on the Crimson Tide against Texas in Spanish coming up in just a little bit. Then we'll take a look back to last night's edition of Crimson Tide Rewind at Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills as Corey Reamer and I discuss the loss to Texas and again look ahead to what's coming up against USF. That'll be part of Be Kind Crimson Tide Rewind. We will take a look at the rest of our headlines, again presented by RJ Young. Last Saturday, the Crimson Tide football team falling to Texas by 10 after Alabama briefly took the lead early in the fourth quarter. The Longhorns were able to outscore Alabama 21-8 in the fourth quarter to pick up that victory. Now the Crimson Tide, 1-1 on the season, will be at South Florida on Saturday at Raymond James Stadium. 2:30 is the kickoff, and we will have radio coverage at 11:30 a.m. Not just this Saturday, but next Saturday as well. We learned that Alabama against Ole Miss will be televised by CBS for the next home game for the Crimson Tide. So once again, a 2:30 start, once again 11:30 starting on radio. With the loss to Texas, Alabama now ranked 10th in the country through 2 weeks so far this season. Crimson Tide soccer team still undefeated. Now there are still some draws for Alabama, but it was a really well-earned draw on Sunday night against North Carolina, one of the most anticipated college soccer matches of the year. Alabama fought back to a 1-1 draw. Gianna Paul scored for the Crimson Tide, and with that she was named the SEC Offensive Player of the Week. And Coralie Lawyer for the Crimson Tide at goalkeeper was named the SEC Freshman of the Week. She had the start against North Carolina and did allow one goal, but also picked up a lot of saves and stopped a lot of shots for UNC. Now this Thursday, it's time to start conference play. Alabama starting against Georgia, two teams picked near the top of the SEC. 6 p.m. will be the start time on the SEC network for Alabama against Georgia. Then the Crimson Tide will be on the road at Mercer coming up over the weekend. Some other notes around Crimson Tide athletics. We are certainly thrilled for one of our outstanding women's tennis alums, Erin Routliffe, who we visited before here on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. On Sunday, she and her teammate won the U.S. Open Women's Doubles Championship, so she becomes the first former Alabama tennis player to pick up a Grand Slam title. Congratulations and Roll Tide to Erin Routliffe. Meanwhile, the Crimson Tide volleyball team went 2-1 at the UAB Blazer Classic, so suffering its first loss of the season, but it's still a very good start for Rashinda Reed and the Crimson Tide, 8-1 to begin the year. This coming week, Alabama will be on the road on Thursday at Troy at 6 p.m., and then Grambling State will come to town at Foster Auditorium at 5 p.m. coming up on Saturday. So hopefully a lot of you staying in town, not going to the football game, will be able to cheer on the Crimson Tide volleyball team. I know a lot of you have been cheering on Tyler Booker. He has become a fan favorite quickly here in Tuscaloosa for his outstanding play, and as you'll see in this interview, his outgoing personality. Here's our one-on-one conversation with Alabama's Tyler Booker. Roger Hoover now pleased to be joined by Alabama left guard Tyler Booker. And Tyler, what was the message from Coach Saban after the Texas game?
After the game was really just to regroup, remember this feeling, but also understand why we were where we were at that time, and just understand that we didn't execute when we needed to, and they were the better team that night. But this is it's a long season, you know. That game had no effect on our SEC implications and seeding for that. So we just got to finish the season and just remember this feeling and let it drive us.
2 games in, how would you assess the play of Alabama's offensive line?
Not where it needs to be. You know, we have the right mindset. We have the right goals, you know, but it's something that's going to take time, you know. It's only 2 returning starters. So obviously it's going to take some time for us to build that in-game chemistry. But I feel like I love the guys that we have. You know, we have great guys behind us that keep us driven every day during practice. But I'm excited to see how we get better each week. But there is a long way for us to go.
What's it like to be coached by Coach Wolford, especially for his second year? How have you seen him kind of take steps forward with you guys?
Coach Wolf has taken a lot of steps forward with us as far as just understanding who we are as a player, just knowing his personnel, knowing how to motivate certain guys. But another thing with Coach Wolf is he works with us, you know. So it's him talking at us like, look, you're going to do this. You're going to block this way. Like, what do you think about this? How do you think about this? Like, what do you guys see from this? Look, okay. So Coach Wolf and us, the offensive line, we work together to create the best product on Saturdays.
Taking me back to a year ago for you, how'd you make that transition from being a high school player to playing in college? And obviously you did well at being named all SEC freshman team.
For me, it was really just following the guys that have been here before and who have done it at a high level. So for me, it was just being in the middle of Ekiyor's back pocket, you know, wherever he went, that's where I was, how he trained, how he prepared, how he took practice seriously, took watching film seriously, because he did at a high level for a few years at Bama. So just preparing as if I was him, and also preparing as if I was going to start the next game.
And then what have you seen from Caden Proctor as he makes that transition? He's a starting left tackle as a true freshman.
He's doing the same thing, actually. So that's my roommate for the games in the hotel, and we'll actually go over the game plan before the game, before we go to sleep. And yeah, it's just I'm always on him, because I know what it was like playing early as a freshman. You have a lot of, I won't call it pressure. Well, we're blessed with the pressure of playing early at Alabama, and we know that if we do what we're supposed to do, it'll pay off in the long run. So I'm just very proud of him, and I'm very excited to see how he continues to progress this season.
What makes him so good?
You know, he just has natural leverage. You know, he was a wrestler in Iowa, so he has that leverage, and I love combo blocking with him because he's so strong as well. And he has a great mindset. He has a next play mentality. He might give something up, and I'll be like, hey, you good? He'll be like, yep, let's roll. You know, so that's what sets guys who play early apart from others. They have that next play mentality, because you're playing in the SEC, you're playing on the highest level of college football there is to play on. And for you to just expect perfection, that's not going to happen. So being able to have that mindset and be like, okay, I messed up, I'm going to learn from it, let's play the next play.
Our fans have really enjoyed getting to know you, whether it's through some of your press conferences, interviews you've done, NIL opportunities. What do you like about getting out there and connecting with the fans?
I just know that 30-second interaction I have with a fan could last them 30 years, you know, so something that I do personally. A lot of everybody takes the bus back. So where I stay, it's not far from the stadium. So I usually walk back after every game, just so the fan sees me, wants to talk, take a picture. I'm more than welcome to do that, because I know that interaction I can have with them could last them a lifetime. And I just love interacting with the fans, and I love getting that hometown feel from Tuscaloosa.
That's certainly good. All right, last question. What's it going to take on Saturday to get a win at South Florida?
Playing to the Bama standard and executing.
Sounds good. Well, Tyler Booker, thank you so much for joining us here on Crimson Drive. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
The NASCAR Cup Series playoffs are returning to Talladega this fall. Don't miss out on the opportunity to get up close to some of NASCAR's most talented drivers with the unparalleled access available at Talladega Superspeedway. Be a part of NASCAR's legendary 75th anniversary season and make memories with your friends and family that will last a lifetime. Lock in your tickets today for the Yellowwood 500 on Sunday, October 1st. Tickets are now on sale at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com. As we continue on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, we'll take a look back to Saturday night, Alabama against Texas. Yes, it was a 10-point loss for the Crimson Tide, but there were some good moments for Alabama in that ball game, and we'll take a look back at it now with our Booth Cam highlights presented by Royal Furniture. Of course, we have the Booth Cam live and streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube for each and every Crimson Tide football game. So here's some of the great moments from Alabama's game on Saturday against Texas with Eli Gold. Tyler Watts on the call.
Here's Will approaching the football, and we are underway, and the kick will sail into and out of the end zone. Here's a 3rd down and 8. Straight drop, Milroe looks, throws, it is caught. Nicely done by Kobe Prentice. Milroe gets the snap, steps back, steps up, pumps, throws near side. Catch made by Prentice inside the 20, and he'll dance down to the 17-yard line. All of a sudden, the light switch has been flipped on.
And Jalen Milroe is able to do it because he's breaking containment and he's getting an open field where he is a threat to run. Texas is having to react to him, and that is creating some separation for his receivers.
Neeland Hibbett is the snapper. James Burnett is the holder. The kick on the way. It is up, and it is good. So a 30-yard field goal ends the half here in Tuscaloosa. Milroe gets a low snap, looks left. He'll throw this one long. Has a man behind the D, and it's caught. Caught by Isaiah Bond. And that's what you need to loosen things up a little bit right there. It'll go for 34 yards.
Yeah, that's that spark that you need, and all of a sudden this fan base, who has had very little to cheer about in the first half, all of a sudden on their stands. This is a great throw to the outside. Bonds beat his man. The ball's thrown another 2 or 3 yards. Jalen, let that thing go. It's another touchdown.
Here's the kick. It's on the way, end over end, and it is good. Another lengthy kick by Reichert against the Texas Longhorns. Milroe will audible. Everybody on the offensive line pointing. Here comes the snap. Milroe takes off. He's being chased. He gets the corner, and he turns the corner at the midfield stripe and should have enough for a first down.
And David Benda, the middle linebacker for Texas, he is trying his best to spy Jalen Milroe. He is sitting there in position, but Milroe has too much speed once he gets on the perimeter.
Second down and 10 and a half. Man in motion goes to the far side. Here's Milroe, loads up, looks down the left side. He's got a man there open in the end zone. Touchdown, Jermaine Burton. That will be 49 yards. Again, a low snap. Picked up by Milroe. He'll throw, and it's caught by Nyblack. He'll make the grab down to the 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Alabama. 39 yards. 39 yards.
Hey, give me an ugly drop back with a completion for a touchdown. I'll take it all day long. It really doesn't matter how the sausage is made. The result is all we're interested in. That's really only the second target that Black has had. And you got to sometimes think when the ball on the ground, that can sometimes affect the defense, and their eyes might go down. Black found a wide open cushion in the middle of the field and then did some real damage after he caught that ball.
Kendrick Law wide left. In tight on the right is Jermaine Burton. Here's Milroe looking, rolls left and throws. Complete for a 2-point conversion. Complete to Isaiah Bond for a 2-point conversion.
Hey, when the Crimson Tide are back at home in 2 weeks against Ole Miss, where will you be on game day? You can be part of the action with a premium reserve tailgate from Game Day Done Right. Get your group together, pick your game and tailgate package, add on catering, beverages, other tailgating amenities, and let Game Day Done Right take it from there. Enjoy all the fun of game day with zero stress. Visit GameDayDoneRight.com to reserve your tailgate today. For your next tailgate, just add people. Game Day Done Right is the exclusive provider of reserved tailgating opportunities for the University of Alabama and offers packages for all group sizes for a single game or for the entire season. So many great games still to come here in Tuscaloosa, most notably the next few home games, Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Tennessee. Don't miss out to tailgate with the Tide with Game Day Done Right. As we continue here on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, we're starting to look ahead now a little bit towards what's coming up on Saturday. The Crimson Tide making the road trip to South Florida to take on the USF Bulls, and starting our week here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network and with the Coach Saban. He always has his weekly press conference on Mondays to kind of reset everything for this Crimson Tide football team. Here's Coach's checklist from Coach Saban's Monday press conference here in Tuscaloosa.
I don't think it's any huge secret or anything that we did not execute on a consistent enough basis, in this last game, and too many turnovers, penalties, mental errors on defense, sacks. Things that are helpful in being consistent. in terms of whether it's sustaining drives, not giving up big plays that, lead to field position and scores. So the focus is 100% on how we get it turned around. The future is now. All right, so how do we get our players to, we got to do a better job as coaches to help them be able to play, better, more consistently in the game, put them in a position where they have the best chance to be successful. But I think all these things are fixable, very fixable. I believe in our players. I think we've got good players. I think, Texas has a good team. And just like I said before, it was a test. It was like, an early test in the semester. We didn't grade out very well on the test, so, what are we going to do to get a better grade? I think that's what we have to really learn and grow from and make a commitment to. And, I think our players, with the kind of character and attitude that we've shown, so far as a team, I think they'll respond the right way. And I think the coaches will do the same. South Florida is had a first-year coach, and they're moving the ball and scoring points. And it's not about necessarily always who we play. It's how we technically execute against the team that we play, so we have a chance to be successful. It's a road game. It's our first road game. They've got some good players. They've got a pretty good quarterback. They play hard on defense. So everyone's capable. But it's about you playing to your standard, us playing to our standard, and trying to play the kind of football that we need to play so that we have a chance to be more successful on a more consistent basis. I don't know that in this past game we had much of identity. I think we started out early in the game being able to run the ball effectively, and we did not mix up the play-action pass and to complement the run game, and eventually, it got harder and harder to run the ball. We did make some explosive plays on offense, but it's too like hit or miss. You got to have consistency to be able to sustain drives, and that's the one thing that we didn't do. We made explosive plays, but we weren't consistent enough in terms of developing identity, to use your term. But the identity that we'd like to have is to be physical enough to be able to run the ball consistently, effectively, but also be able to have a good play-action game to go with it, be able to drop back when we need to, and be efficient and effective in all those areas. And I can't say that we were in this game, other than making some explosive plays. We didn't do that well enough. Well, I think the goal is to, when you're trying to play home-and-home games, the goal is to try to enhance the quality of opponents that you have. So, you just can't go out and say, hey, let's play a game, and everybody agrees to it. You got to negotiate your way through to see who you can play and who you can't play. And, it's been our goal. Now, this was before conference realignment, so that may have some impact on it in the future, was we wanted, since we're not going to play in a neutral site game, can we get 2 quality opponents to be able to play in every season besides the SEC games? So we have 10 games that, and look, it's not easy to find people that will play you, and sometimes you have to give and take a little bit to try to get those games to where we have a quality home schedule, and we are playing 2 teams that are Division I caliber, decent teams to play. So scheduling is very difficult, and we've tried to get it to where we're playing 2 teams, and I think in most years we are moving forward.
You'll have to see it to believe it. Whoever said that must have been talking about Talladega. It's a place where chaos mixes with speed, and a playoffs weekend becomes a lifetime of memories. Get your tickets now at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com.
We continue on Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, with our national look at Alabama football, what we always call the big picture. Special thanks to Greg McElroy, thanks to our All-State partnership, joining us the last 2 weeks to talk about the All-State Crossbar Classic. But this week, we're going to go a little bit south of the border and talk with Oscar Cleriga, who has been essentially the voice of Alabama football in Spanish for over a decade. Yes, we always think of that title with Eli Gold or Chris Stewart, but Oscar has been delivering fans play-by-play action of Crimson Tide games for a long time. He's called Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, you name it. He has called it throughout his time, but he certainly loves college football, and he loves this program in particular, the University of Alabama. So we figured this was a great week to catch up with him as he was just in town for the Texas game, as we get his thoughts on the Crimson Tide football team this season, but also how it came to be. He called so many Alabama games for, again, Claro Sports, broadcasting to 17 different countries in Latin America. I think you'll find this a fascinating conversation with Oscar Cleriga from Claro Sports. Oscar, it's a pleasure to have you on Roll Tide. How's everything going?
Hello, Roger. The pleasure is mine. A real honor can be with you and all the folks of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Like you say, no, Roll Tide.
Absolutely. Well, you were there at Bryant-Denny Stadium this past Saturday for the Crimson Tide against the Texas Longhorns. What was that experience like covering that game? And then what is the reaction in Latin America to Alabama's first loss of the year?
Yeah, it was a huge game, no? In the schedule, always be this match, no? Here in Mexico, the two college, Alabama and Texas, have a great fan base in all over the country, and in Latin America too. Countries like Colombia, Peru, Chile follow with a lot of passion the college football and the pro football. But in this case, this game was amazing, no? We have the opportunity to be in the stadium, see all this great stuff in a night game, you know, with the lights, with all the fans, and with this rivalry, you know, between Texas and Alabama, and the beginning of all the Nick Saban era, you know, with that national championship, that kind of story. In Mexico, the people always try to keep, you know, learn about the football and the football players, of course, the coaches.
Absolutely. And for you, what can you tell us about your background? How long have you been covering Alabama football, and what's been part of the reason that you've been able to cover the Crimson Tide so well the last few years?
Yes, of course. We in Claro Sports broadcasting the games of the ACC since 2012. In my career, I began with American football, like we say here in Mexico, no, between the soccer and football, like you say. But the American football in Mexico have a great fan base. I broadcast the local games for the universities and pro teams. We have a little league, pro league, with only 10 teams, is the LFA. And that's why it was my beginning 23 years ago. It was my first broadcasting in American football. And with this opportunity in Claro Sport to broadcasting and be the voice of the ACC in Latin America, the experience growing up. Now, I am a big fan, a big follower of Coach Nick Saban since his years in the Cleveland Browns. In pro football, I am a Steelers fan. But when Bill Belichick and Nick Saban was head coach Bill and as defensive coordinator Nick Saban, I make that kind of click, you know, with the philosophy of these two greatest of all time. That's the beginning of my follow, and now being the broadcaster and the voice in Latin America, I feel the obligation to go to Alabama and saw all these great things, you know, not only in football, in athletics and in the academic stuff, because it's huge. You know, the University of Alabama, it's huge. You know, it's amazing, and that's part of the reason why I have a couple of years in a row going to Alabama.
Yeah, we've certainly enjoyed having you here. Of course, all that experience, like you talked about, covering the Crimson Tide remotely. What did it mean to you to get to Tuscaloosa for the first time this past year and then get to come back even this season and get to see it for yourself in person?
Yeah, in the professional stuff and in the personal stuff was a dream. No, it's a dream. It can make possible this goal because in a in a studio, TV studio, you have that emotion, you have that passion, but being in the stadium is another thing. No, for me, in the personal stuff, a dream come true. No, and in the professional stuff, a goal, a real goal. Go to Alabama and see all this philosophy. No, all this kind of living around the sport, no? In this case, football. No, I am a crazy guy about football because, like I'm saying here in Mexico, in life as in football, we always need a game plan, no? And it's true, outside, inside the field.
Absolutely. So again, through your broadcasts, so many Crimson Tide fans have been made in different Latin American countries. What's some of the feedback you hear on the broadcast you have, and as people start to learn more and more about Alabama, I imagine there are just more Crimson Tide fans every time you turn around.
Yeah, with this opportunity to go to Alabama and make all these reportages and articles, know about the Bert Bryant Museum, the facilities of the team, make the press conference. The people start to ask about many things, no, like how looks the streets, how looks the stadium, how big is Bryant Denny Stadium, no, many questions about the Crimson Tide, like we say in Mexico, marea carmesí, no, the carmesí, the color, no, in Spanish is the translation, vamos marea carmesí. The people is very reacting about this journey because with my eyes in Alabama, the camera, no, and the articles, the public have, the fans have this opportunity to feel more close to the Crimson Tide. No, being in the on the field is amazing because the people see a photo, no, in social media, in the broadcasting per se, and feel that real attraction to be in the place. No, it's an amazing, and all the Crimson Tide here in Mexico and Latin America is growing up. The brand is bigger, no, and the passion here in Mexico. We have a great quote of craziness.
Well, that's certainly good to hear about. For any fans that may be watching that are Spanish speakers, could you please, in Spanish, just give us your thoughts on Alabama's performance against Texas and maybe what needs to happen for the Crimson Tide coming up this Saturday against South Florida? Again, in Spanish, please.
Ok, perfecto. Sí, con mucho gusto para toda la gente y la comunidad hispana que nos esté escuchando. El sentimiento es el de todos, ¿no? Es una derrota que fue complicada contra Texas, por como bien lo decía el coach Nick Saban previo, ¿no? Se trataba de una prueba de saber a dónde estaban sus jugadores parados, dónde estaba este equipo. El resultado es adverso, pero como lo ha dicho en el arranque de esta semana el propio coach, se tiene que ir para adelante, se aprende de estos errores como en la vida, ¿no? Y es parte del trabajo, una gran línea ofensiva que ante una gran línea defensiva sufrió un poco. Ese me parece fue el breaking point, el punto de quiebra del partido, la línea ofensiva de Alabama y la línea defensiva de los Texas Longhorns. Y bueno, la actuación de Quinn Ewers, ¿no? El quarterback de los Texas Longhorns, que no tuvo error y que no tuvo presión por parte de la defensiva de Alabama, ni un solo sack, ninguna captura de quarterback. Pero la reflexión es positiva, con un equipo que es joven, con un equipo que tiene armas importantes, línea ofensiva, cuerpos receptores, el backfield, la posición de quarterback tal vez tiene esa incertidumbre, ¿no? Pero defensivamente también los nombres y los apellidos son importantes. Y de cara al próximo partido, escuchábamos al coach Nick Saban en la conferencia de prensa, ¿no? Hay que aprender de los errores y se debe dar un paso al frente para seguir sumando. Y nada está dicho. Estamos solo en la semana 2. This is week 2, and we have many roads in front of us.
That's certainly good to hear. Well, Oscar, thank you so much for joining us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Again, we appreciate the coverage you give to Alabama athletics to so many people around the world. Just thank you, and we look forward to visiting with you again down the road. Roll Tide.
Perfect. Of course. See you the next year. Thank you, Roger. Thank you to all the people. You are wonderful with me. Let me say you gracias. Thanks so much and roll tide.
Don't miss out on your chance to see the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs return to Talladega on October 1st. Purchase your tickets today for the Yellowwood 500 at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com. Be part of one of the best atmospheres in all of sports. Always a fun atmosphere at Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills on Monday nights at 6 p.m. because that means it's time for Crimson Tide Rewind, presented by the Alabama Department of Public Health. Once again, Corey Reamer and I are teaming up on that show this season. And last night, even though Alabama had a loss on Saturday against Texas, we had a really entertaining show. We had a lot of people at the restaurant there to talk about the Crimson Tide and the Longhorns, plus what needs to happen coming up on Saturday against USF. So it's time to take a look back at the show from last night. Crimson Tide Rewind. This is Be Kind. Crimson Tide Rewind. Roll time, everybody that's here with us at Baumhauer's.
Roll Tide, everybody. Hey, there's more excitement than I thought there was going to be coming off this game on Saturday. But glad they're here. We're not all giving up. Not giving up on the team just yet. It's still a lot to play for.
Yeah, a lot to play for as the Crimson Tide fall to 1-1 on the season. Texas picks up the win, 34-24. The final score in what turned out to be kind of a crazy night inside Bryant-Denny Stadium.
Yeah, it was. It was. I'm not ready to be Chicken Little just yet. You know, the sky's not completely falling, but it was obvious that it was. You know, there's a lot of things to dissect from this game. It was a lot of things that went wrong that we did not execute very well on both sides of the ball and at every single position. You know, it wasn't like it was limited to just one group or one person. It was the defense. It was the offense. You know, it was a great environment. I was there in person, and it was one of the most exciting environments that I've been to in a long time. It was one of the biggest games in Bryant-Denny in a long time, and people showed up. The fan bases showed up, and it made it difficult as much as we possibly could for Texas coming in. But that Texas team is a good team, and they showed it on Saturday. And we've still got a lot of growing pains to go with this team. A lot of young guys that are on this team, and we've got a lot of things to clean up. But I was proud of the way that this team continued to fight, even as bad as it went. Pretty much after the first quarter, there were a lot of things that just didn't go our way, didn't go right. But the team kept responding and making things happen and keeping themselves in the game and got to a point where they're leading in the fourth quarter, you know, and then pulled it within 3 late and had a chance to give the offense the ball back and go out there and potentially take the lead. And unfortunately, we just came up a little bit short. And it was against a team that Texas has been working their tail off to get back to this point. And Steve Sarkisian had that team ready to come into Tuscaloosa and put together a complete game. And you got to give them credit because those guys looked like what Alabama fans are used to seeing from Alabama teams. When it comes down to the fourth quarter and you've got a lead, you can go out there and take the air out of the ball with your running game and push lines of scrimmage, and they did it the entire game. And especially in that fourth quarter, they really took over and put that game away with, like I said, I think it was over 7 minutes left on the clock when they got the ball and they never came off the field on offense.
And it's not like Alabama got off to a bad start in this ballgame as well. Coach Saban really praised the energy and the focus he saw from this group early on.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first quarter we looked great. I thought we came out there, we established the run. We knocked guys off the ball. We were moving the ball down the field. The defense was playing exceptionally well. You know, you get the interception by Milroe early, and then the defense turns around and responds really well. Malachi Moore made a couple of big plays to shut down that drive and hold Texas to a field goal when they start the drive on the Alabama 30-yard line. I thought there was a lot of things that went really well early on in that game, but you always hear Coach Saban talking about starting fast and finishing strong, and we started fast in this game, but unfortunately we just did not finish as strong as we needed to, especially in that fourth quarter when we had chances to really take over the game and put it away. The fan base was there when we scored that late touchdown where we took the lead. You could just hear the excitement in the fans, and usually that's the point in time where the other opposing teams start to realize that this Alabama team is here, and then we're going to go out there and take this game away. And we just weren't able to do it. We didn't execute the little things that we typically do well, that we're accustomed to seeing from these Alabama teams late in the game, and it cost us, unfortunately. And it's an early season blemish but it's not a season-ending loss. And we've got a lot still left to play for. We haven't started conference play. This is a out-of-conference game against a very good Texas team who surprised a lot of people, including us. We talked last week about the expectations for this game, and there was a lot of talk going into it about their offensive line was not going to be ready to hold up. They struggled last year, didn't look great against Rice last week, but they played really well. Kept Quinn Ewers clean all night. We weren't able to get a sack all night long. He had a lot of time to find open receivers, and he executed extremely well.
Corey Rammer, let's talk quarterback play for Alabama. We saw Jalen Milroe go 14 of 27 passing, 255 yards, had the 2 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, it's the last 2 games that we've had, he started against, was it Texas A&M last year, at Middle Tennessee State last week, but against Texas and Texas A&M, he's had 5 touchdowns, but also has had 5 interceptions. And that's the thing that Coach Saban talked about going into this season is we've got to figure out a way, who's going to be the guy that eliminates those mistakes, eliminates those errors, those costly mistakes like turnovers, that's going to give us the best chance to win. But I will say, it's not all on Milroe. The guy made a lot of plays last week with his feet. We saw the athletic ability that he has, and he did it again on Saturday. There's a lot of times when the pocket collapsed very quickly on him, and he had to make something happen with his feet. And there was some pretty good coverage downfield from this Texas secondary, and a lot of that was because they only had to rush 3 and 4 to really push the pocket. They had 7, 8 guys that were dropping back in coverage. It's tough as a quarterback, especially when you can't establish the run, and we didn't do that we did it early in the first quarter. We were able to move the ball pretty well, but then we ended up not having the same success from then on, and that really hinders the passing game. So it makes it tough on a quarterback to have to throw against those guys that are dropping in coverage, that many guys dropping in coverage. But I thought he made a lot of impressive plays. Unfortunately, the mistakes that he made were costly. The first interception, throwing out into a squat corner, and you heard the interview with the corner that made the interception, that first one after the game. It seems like they had a kind of a picked up on that play call early in the game, and they went back to it. Alabama's offense went back to it, and seemed like he was able to bait him into the throw. But you got to see that. As a quarterback, you've got to see that there's a guy sitting out there before you make that throw. You got to be able to read the defense. And the second one really was probably the nail in the coffin for us. And unfortunately, it was a single-man route. There was only one guy that was out there running a route. And Texas, you saw the safety immediately break over and just break in front of the ball and made a play on it. And he's got to be able to read that defense a little bit faster. That's something that he's going to have to continue to improve on as the season goes on, being able to see the field, realizing what he's got out in front of him. When you've only got one man that's running a route and you see he's covered or there's more guys that are moving over towards him, you just got to tuck it and run and move on to the next play. That's what Coach Saban talks about. We want every drive to end in a kick in some form or fashion, whether it's a punt, a field goal, or PAT, and we've got to eliminate those mistakes that were made on Saturday. So, but I thought he did a lot of things well. He throws the deep ball extremely well. We saw that. He's got a heck of an arm, and he moves around the pocket very well. He's able to break away from some defenders that are in the backfield, avoid getting sacked. But it's everything that's in between those two things that we've got to see him improve on. The intermediate throws, finding guys open, reading defenses, knowing where to go with the ball, and trying not to, telegraph where he's looking. And that seemed to be the case on that second interception. He was kind of eyeballing the guy and still made that pass. So he's a good leader. He's a guy that wants to be successful in this position, and I know he's going back and watching this film and trying to learn as much as he can, getting together with Tommy Rees and figuring out what the game plan is going forward. How can he get better each and every week? And I expect him to. I mean, he's a competitor, and you can tell he's out there. He wants to lead this team. He learned a lot from Bryce Young. Hopefully we'll see some vast improvement from this week into the next.
We just talked about the play of quarterback Jalen Milroe, and you talked about how it's not all on his shoulders, some of the ways the offense came up a little bit short. How about the offensive line? What did you see from that group on Saturday?
Yeah, it was, like we said, early on, it seemed like they were able to push the line of scrimmage and really held their own. And then it just seemed like Texas was able to figure out how to really just only, when you can get pressure in collapsed pockets with only 3 or 4 man pressures, which they did a number of times, and I think they ended up giving up, 5 sacks? I think there was 9 tackles for loss. those things were coming. I think one of them was a 3-man front on those sacks, and then a lot of them were on the 4-man. Not a lot of them were because of bringing extra guys in blitz packages. So there's a lot to clean up. I thought Jaden Proctor played well early on, and then it seemed like he was opening the floodgates, turning his hips a little early. It's probably a lot to do with his technique of why that pocket kept getting collapsed. You don't want your offensive line turning and opening their hips right from the jump when they're setting back for pass block. And it seemed like the couple of plays that I noticed that we were getting a lot of pressure, that's what was going on. So as a freshman, you're throwing a lot out there for a guy in a big game like this, putting up a defensive line that I was actually very impressed by from Texas. And that was one of the strengths of their team coming into this game. And they lived up to the expectations, and they came after them and knew that they had a freshman sitting there playing left tackle. But we talked about Sweat in the middle for Texas at nose tackle at 365 pounds. Really gave McLaughlin a lot of trouble. I mean, you saw the collapse happening from all sides. And we saw Milroe have to make a lot of plays with his feet to avoid the pressure. You can do a lot of things with your game plan that can help eliminate that, slow those guys down to give your offensive linemen some breaks. But one of the things that's on them is being able to run the football. The more effectively that you can run the football, the less they're sitting there pinning their ears back and trying to get after it in obvious passing down situations. It opens up the play action. And when we just lost the ability to really impose our will in the running game, you saw them really just coming after Milroe. So there's definitely some room for improvement. This is a group that took a lot of pride in the offseason. They heard all the talk from everybody about how this group's got to be the one that steps up and improves. They've got to get back that dog mentality, and it still remains to be seen. That Tyler Booker's been out there leading the charge of saying this is a group that's going to lead this team, and we got to see it. Unfortunately, it was probably not one of their better games so far this season, early in the season, but like we said, a lot of time to go out and correct the mistakes and figure out how to get that fixed.
Alabama going on the road to a non-Power 5 opponent, a little bit different. Coach Saban talked about it today at his press conference, part of a 2-for-1 with USF, so we'll get to see the Bulls here soon in Tuscaloosa. Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be it's uncommon for us to go on the road for a non-Power 5 conference like this, but South Florida is a team that historically has been a very tough game as a non-Power 5 opponent. And especially when you go to Tampa, it's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. Those guys know how to throw the football around. It's going to be a tough test for us. But the biggest thing for us is we got to look in the mirror. This is no different than any other week, and you got to treat this game just like you did this Texas game. You got to prepare for it, because the last thing you want to do is go down to Tampa and still have a little lag from this Texas game and let it affect the outcome of this next one. The most important one is always the next one. We've got a conference play that begins after that, but we got to figure out a way to bounce back, play some clean football, and I imagine you're going to get to see a lot of different guys playing in this game, and that's the goal. Is you want to go in there and take care of business early and get a lot of guys reps before we come back in town for Ole Miss. But these South Florida Bulls, Blake Barnett was the guy that transferred. We had at Alabama. He transfers to South Florida and leaves Tuscaloosa, goes down there and plays. They're a real program, and if this team doesn't treat them like one, it opens you up for potential surprises. I mean, we saw some games this past weekend. Appalachian State really puts it to North Carolina. North Carolina escapes with a victory, but those games are the types of ones that sneak up on you. And, that North Carolina team had just beat a big rival in South Carolina the week before. The players, if you find out the true discipline of these players, if they can really stay focused and put this, 24-hour rule Coach Saban always talks about, whether you win or you lose, you forget about it, you got to move on. We're going to see if these guys have the ability to do it. About a minute left, but are you surprised? Maybe we've gotten so spoiled by all the SEC victories and non-conference play over the years. Have you been a little bit surprised by what we've seen for the league?
I think there's a number of different things that may be causing this. I think there's a lot more parity across college football with the transfer portal, and you're starting to see it. Maybe the depth isn't as what it used to be for teams like Alabama and Georgia and LSU. They've still got top-tier talent. It's just that you lose guys that you've been working on developing, and they're finally starting. They should be falling into a role that contributes to this team, but before they get to that point, they're leaving and going somewhere else to play immediately. They don't, and I think that's causing a lot of the problems in terms of the powerhouses. You're seeing a lot of these other teams that are picking up talents from each one. But yeah, I think we're like 3-5 as against out of conference teams so far as an SEC. So it is shocking to see LSU, Texas A&M, and us in the West that have already gone down with losses. It's uncommon to see.
Florida to Utah.
Yeah,
too.
Florida to Utah. So there's a lot of them across the board. It just seems that there's a lot of teams that are out there that are picking up scraps from teams, guys that want to play earlier. They're able to bounce around and play immediately, and you're starting to see some of the effects of it, it seems like.
Great thoughts from former Crimson Tide linebacker Corey Reamer as we have Crimson Tide Rewind each and every Monday at 6 p.m. Baumhower's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills. That started our week of programming here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, but let's take a look at what's coming up with our weekend update brought to you by Wickles Pickles. They are wickedly delicious. We have the relish. We have the pickle chips with us each and every show here on Crimson Drive. Let's take a look at what is coming up, and also make sure you check out WicklesPickles.com. Again, here's our Wickles weekend update for this week. Thursday, we'll be back in action, even tomorrow, and tomorrow we will have a lot of clips, of course, going across social media from some of our interviews that we've had, gearing up for everything that is coming up on Thursday. But make sure on Thursday you join us again at 2 o'clock for Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We'll have a new episode of Tide TV this week, hosted by Kinsey Hughes, and then Eli Gold will be the host of Hey Coach and the Nick Saban Show. Thursday night, Baumhower's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa, starting at 6:30. We look forward to that coming up on Thursday night. Then on Friday, we'll have our video preview of the USF game. And on Saturday, make sure you're ready for some football on the road. Alabama going down to Tampa to take on USF. 2:30 start time. Our radio coverage will begin at 11:30 a.m., not just for this upcoming week, but also next week against Ole Miss. On Sunday, it'll be the Nick Saban television show as Coach Saban and Chris Stewart will talk about the USF game, look ahead to Ole Miss. And then on Monday, again, we'll have what you just saw, Crimson Tide Rewind from Baumhower's Victory Grill in Vestavia Hills at 6 p.m. That is our upcoming schedule. Thanks to our friends at Wickles Pickles. Make sure you go online to WicklesPickles.com for more. That's going to wrap up this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Special thank you to our guest that we had today, Tyler Booker from Alabama football, as well as Oscar Cleriga from Claro Sports, as well as Corey Reamer for his contribution on Crimson Tide Rewind last night. Special thanks to Ethan Carabin, our video producer, for putting this show together, and thanks to all of you for watching as we get set for Week 3 of Alabama football, and we look forward to joining you again on Thursday with Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. For all of us at the Crimson Tide Sports Network, I'm Roger Hoover saying thank you for watching, and Roll Tide.